Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session today on how much can I really earn in early years. And I'm delighted again to be joined by the fantastic Kim and Mark, both from Tiny. And I'll be hosting today. And I'm Ben from Childcare Marketing. If you don't know me already and you weren't part of the last session that we ran last week. But before we dive in, Kim, do you want to introduce yourself briefly again?
Hi Ben, sorry, excuse my voice. I'm just recovering from a bad cold. So I'm Kim. I'm head of education and training. I have a background in early years for over 30 years, and I now lead over 1,500 childminders in their training and education and their business.
Fantastic. And Mark, how about yourself?
Hey, yeah, I'm Mark. So I'm also with Tiny. I'm the head of quality, overseeing kind of quality assurance processes and quality in general for our childminders. But I've been with Tiny for about 3.5 years in the childminding sector. But before that, I had around 13 years in nursery world, or in the nursery world, working across lots of different nursery settings. So I come at it from a couple of different hats, I guess.
Brilliant. It's always great to have both of you on these sessions. And if I was doing these on my own or doing with anybody else, I think I would struggle. You're both absolutely fantastic. And if you're joining us for the first time, please take a look at the Tiny YouTube channel. Last week's session was a very in-depth one, and we covered a lot about early years and actually working in early years in general and opportunities that you may not have thought about before as well, which we're going to hopefully dive deeper in today and really look at how you can really maximize your opportunities within early years. So to start things off, I mean, we've got to be honest, right? From what I've heard from people I've spoken to, no one really comes into work in early years to get rich. Right, I think that is probably a fair point, and I think the problem is though we shouldn't have to struggle, right? And I think what we need to look at really is there is the passion there is real big passion in early years, but the problem is that there's a lot of struggle, especially at the moment with how things have changed in terms of government, how things have changed in terms of funding for day nurseries, especially because that's also had its impact on earnings and potential opportunities for people in the sector. But really, I mean, Mark, if you don't mind, I'm just going to start off by asking you kind of a question and your views on this particular topic. But obviously, I think you mentioned previously about you coming into early years because it was your passion. You left early years and you came back into early years because you're so passionate about it. I mean, what are your thoughts for anybody that's, I guess, what's your big thing for anybody that's listening today in terms of what they should really be thinking about, if they're in that position that you were in, what would you recommend that they do, and what would you recommend that they look at doing now?
With regards to pay, or with regards to
pay?
Yeah. So I think it's really tricky. It's such a contentious subject and such a big subject. I think we've got this session, but we could probably have 7 sessions on its own. And I think what I would say is that we know that there's a huge recruitment and retention crisis in the early year sector. And a big part of that is around pay. There's lots of other reasons as well, and lots of challenges around working hours, and around an agency crisis that means that it starts this kind of spiral. So you may find yourself, and there might be people here, and I can definitely think of settings I've worked in my past where the harder working people are the ones that have stayed for ages, and suddenly they find themselves as 1 or 2 of the only permanent members of staff in a setting with lots of agency members of staff, or people leaving their comfortable nurseries and going to work for the agency because they're getting a higher salary through an agency rate, which I think is a real shame. But what I would say is there are settings out there that look at pay and try and pay in a more fair way. I think we have some huge issues with the way that the early year sector is funded, particularly nursery provision. For childminders, the funding changes hasn't been quite so challenging, but I know that the funding rates have caused a lot more challenges for nursery settings and the way in which they're run. So if you are someone in the nursery sector, then I would very much say, look out there, see what's available, because there is a shortage of really good early years people who've got some experience. It's very likely that a nursery group will snap you up. and look at what's important to you. So is it pay and how much you're earning? Is it the culture of which you're working in? There are some nursery groups that will pay you more but might not fit with your view of how education should be. So don't jump straight from somewhere where you might love into something that pays a bit more but actually doesn't give you the same impact or it doesn't fit with who you are as a person. And I worked for a nursery group in London where we were trying to pay the most we could as a not-for-profit, but we were in a tricky patch and we couldn't expand the wages too much. And there was a nursery group that opened as a competitor and robbed lots of our staff because they were able, as a company backed by VC funding and lots more funding available to them in that period, to pay our staff more wages. And what was really interesting is I saw quite a few of those staff come back to us because they went there and realized that it just did not fit with their ethos. So pay is really important, but don't fully think through exactly what you need to do. I think for me, and what I love now, and I'm trying not to be biased here, but I think I also have to give my very honest opinion, is the reason that I have loved coming into the childminding sector is watching people being able to earn a decent salary. I feel like that is really unique to early years, and it's been a really wonderful thing for me to watch people come in from nursery practitioner roles that are really struggling financially and being able to actually make a decent living from early years. So yes, bias, I am working for a childminder agency, but I try to be really reasonable across both because I have huge love and passion for the nursery sector too. I do a lot of work still there, but I think if you're looking at where to earn, then childminding probably can offer more, but there are some nursery groups that do pay a premium. So keep your eyes peeled, have a look and work out what's important.
No, definitely, 100%. And I've spoken to a lot of owners in the last 7 days, following our last session, and the comments that are kind of coming back are very much, we can't afford to pay more. We're really struggling ourselves, and it's true. We know there's mass underfunding in the sector. We know budgets are stretched. We know there's a high staff to child ratio. We know there's these problems, right? Or potentially not problems, but problems just because of the funding situation that then keep causing all these other questions to come of it. And if you are watching as an owner, I think the one thing to kind of bear in mind is that you can still guide and you can still create your own culture. You can create your own path, and you can almost create, you can empower your team. And that's a big thing we spoke about last time, is empowerment. You can really focus on building a team that's part of your community, that are empowered, that stay with you. And you've got people coming to you because they're talking about you as a brand, they're talking about you as a company, and they want to come and work for you. And it's not just financial, it's not just a financial drive. And for all you practitioners listening, the same applies. If there's a company there that, is able to offer you empowerment and able to offer you something a bit more than just pay, actually it may not be a bad opportunity for you to take, even if financially it doesn't, it doesn't kind of wash it, it doesn't kind of cover what you want it to cover. It may be a good stepping stone in your career path to go somewhere where actually they're giving you a bit more empowerment, they're giving you a bit more fair responsibility, and responsibility that enables you to develop as an individual as well. And there's a lot of providers I know do amazing training, amazing development programs, even like management training. And all of these things are going to help you throughout your career. And the big thing is, and I'm glad to be joined by both of you because you're both from a childminding background. It's a case of if you wanted to start your own business, potentially childminding could be an option. And if you've built all those skills already within the nursery you're working in, you potentially got quite a I wouldn't say an easy route, but you've potentially got a smoother transition route than if you were just going, right, I'm a practitioner now and I want to earn more. I want to become a childminder. Actually, there is potentially a lot more learning for you before you can make that transition. Am I right in saying that Mark and Kim? Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's been bits of my career where it's it might not have been the highest paid salary I've had at that time, but it's definitely helped me to expand my skills and be involved in something where I can make an impact and develop in my career. I think the one thing I would share to any owners or managers listening is something I've been guilty of in the past, which is not being transparent about the challenges. And I think moving from a private nursery group where finances and budgets were very private and very management level only, to charity, where actually when we went through a tricky patch, told our team, we talked about the realities, and I found that being vulnerable was really, really useful to take people on the journey with us, so they knew why we were experiencing what we were experiencing, and being a bit more open about the challenges we were facing, rather than it feeling cloak and daggers, because it meant that no one was kind of under a false sense of, oh, look, they're just paying us this because of X, Y, and Z. So I think being a bit more open and transparent rather than shutting the door and keeping it locked can be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've already had a few comments through, which is always fantastic. And I forgot to say at the start, anybody, if you've got any comments at all or anything you want, any questions you've got, we try our best to answer as many as possible. I appreciate we can't get through everybody, but if you do have anything you want to comment, just please pop it in the comments box, and it will come straight through to us. Whether you're watching through Facebook, whether you're watching through YouTube, you can still put it in the comments. It comes directly to us, and we can answer the questions as we go. We've had a couple of statements. I wouldn't say they're questions, but we've had one which is kind of very relevant, which is, I love my job, but I can't afford to stay in it. I think, when you're in that position and you're at that point where, actually it does come down to affordability, and actually can you live from it? It is very hard. And Mark, there's one which is actually directed at you, which is very relevant, which is, Mark, you said you do it because you care, but how does that help with you with covering your costs?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're in a very difficult financial situation across lots and lots of families and people. So actually some of it is it's not about what you want to earn, it's about what you need to earn and necessities. And I think for me, I have only just managed to move into somewhere where I can live alone at 35. I have spent my life living in house shares, and until last year I was in house shares, and yeah, that's not been ideal. I was running nurseries and in manager positions, and still renting very small room shares in London. I couldn't afford to live in London, and actually I've had to move out of London and up north to be able to afford to live on my own, which I fully understand this. And I think I'm in a position now where my outgoings are able to match what I'm earning enough. It doesn't mean that I'm living a luscious lifestyle, but for me, my own ambitions, I guess, are very much about the social impact. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So as long as I've got enough to survive and to now live on my own, that's kind of my priorities. But I'm a single person. I don't have a family. I'm very aware that people will have their own set of criteria and their own set of needs. So, and I think that is why we have a recruitment and retention crisis, because, like that person on the last message, I love my job, but I can't afford to stay. That is a practical reality, and it's one I wish that we didn't have. And it's part of a much broader problem and a much broader ambition, where we all need to keep fighting for early years to be paid more fairly. And I think there are lots of people doing that very well. I know that myself and Kim and Tiny, we're always having this conversation and raising it to government and raising it to DfE about the amount that is invested in early years, and we keep needing to do that and not stop until we are paid a fair rate.
Yeah, I think it's really a shame actually that we are still having these pay conversations.
Yeah,
when you think of post-pandemic world and what it was like, and the measures that people went to recruit people and to pay bonuses, all of these additional things, and how the world would have stopped without practitioners, really. And we're still not showing the value of the practitioners in that part of the sector. Is we're just still circling the same conversation.
Yeah,
I find that very difficult.
100%. And I think, Mark, what you said there, I mean, anybody listening, it's very selfless, in terms of your attitude towards it, in terms of, you're doing it because for you it's a passion. And, your lifestyle, okay, it may not be for everybody, and not everybody wants to necessarily, live like you potentially have, and nobody wants to live lavishly either, right? There's things, but you've done it because it was your passion, and you've stuck with it because it was your passion.
I think I would say it's selfish as well, in that I did take a year out. I was entirely unhappy working in other sectors. So yeah, I mean, I also would say I've got to a situation now where I'm in a position where I am paid what I would say is a very fair salary in the sector. I'm very, I'm happy for the first time probably in my career with what I'm earning. And I think talking back to what you talked about right at the beginning, Ben, actually some of the roles I did where I wasn't paid what I wanted to be paid and had to not live where I wanted to live, did help me to gain experience. You know, I joined early years at 20, and I didn't have any early years experience. I was very junior, and I worked my way through and going to nursery groups that needed support and being able to make that impact. So I've managed, I think, to probably look at the ladder of my career by working in those roles that may not have paid me a lot, but taught me a lot. And going to settings that really didn't have the budget and working out how we needed to try and increase our income. And so, I think, but I would be clear that, you know, it's nice to be in a position finally where I do feel that I am paid a really fair salary, which is a really nice place to be. Actually.
It's good. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And I think, you know, again, you know, people listening, it's if you're thinking now, you know, you're either at the start of your early years journey, or you're midway through, or you're near the end, you know, you can progress. And, you know, Mark's shown that with his career. You know, you can progress into other things. You don't, you know, there's opportunities that do open. And I think I'm saying early years, but I think every industry, there's opportunities, there's doors that open at key times. And yeah, this kind of leads us on to, you know, how else can you boost your income in early years? You know, what other opportunities are there if you're currently in that position where you're feeling, I'm not quite getting enough, I'm not quite earning enough. Obviously, there's opportunities like babysitting. You know, I guess if you're working term time only, holiday clubs, tutoring. You know, there's options in terms of things you can do. But obviously, having yourself, Kim, here, and having you, Mark, here, you know, the biggest thing potentially is that you might want that next step in your career as a whole, and that next step may be actually starting your own day nursery, as an example. But obviously, childminding, you know, it's an option. How does childminding sit in someone's journey?
I think, well, one, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to speak up for childminders, really, as being a part of the sector, and part of the solution for sure. I think there's probably quite a bit of myth busting that needs to happen around childminders and what they do and what they don't do. And so being able to be here today and to sort of share a little bit more around the role of a childminder and looking at pay as well is probably a really good opportunity. We do have a lot of people that come from the earlier sector, from nursery backgrounds. I think I might have mentioned last time the lady who was a nursery manager, and she kind of wanted to go out for, I think the whole setting were going out for Christmas dinner, and it was like £30 per head, and she couldn't afford to go. And yet her first year with us, she took her family on holiday twice. And that's not an extravagant, you know, one-off influencer type person. This was a regular practitioner. Although she'd been a nursery manager, she still had to learn the ways of a childminder because it's slightly different. You are everything. You are the DSL, you are the Senko, you are the practitioner, you are the fire marshal, you are all of those things.
That's a big responsibility thing again. There's so much responsibility.
I did say it last time, like early years, you're going to work. If you're not a hard worker, don't be in early years. It's not there. You need to come with muscle and passion and vision. We will support you with quality in, you know, developing a quality setting, really having a purpose. And then you find actually the pounds do follow as well. Just to clarify, childminders, yes, they do follow the EYFS. They have to. They're exactly the same as a nursery, and all of the legislation requirements, they still have to follow all of that. With regards to pay, can I share my spreadsheet, Ben, just to demonstrate a little bit around? Yeah, it's probably better for me to share this because it's live in action to show what it would potentially look like.
As you're talking there, Kim, we've also had some really fantastic comments coming in, or on point comments coming in. One of them being, you know, how much can I earn in childminding? And I guess before I'll ask you the question, I guess you're about to answer that question, so I'll leave you to present.
Yeah, thank you. So we've created this wonderful resource for our childminders, actually for trainees and for registered childminders, because we think it's really important for people to understand their income goals. One of the first goals that we have, that the founder of Tiny has, was that he wanted to professionalize childminding so that people see it as a proper profession with a career path, which we do support and develop people within, but also as a starting point to have a salary that was equivalent to a teacher's salary. So a starting salary of about 30,000 as a starting point. So that's one of the goals that we have, is to make sure everybody coming in their first year get to that first 30K. There's a number of other things that I'll talk about as well, if that's okay, when we talk about transitioning and all of those areas. But just thought it'd be really helpful to look at the figures in real time and what that might look at. So I've put in some details here of a local authority. I've made up a childminder who is working part-time, 30 hours, and you all know about the 30 hours, so that's 6 hours a day. Now I've chosen Surrey, but I can choose, if somebody wants to put in a different local authority, I can do that and just kind of go through the figures. So by putting in the details of the local authority, it'll automatically calculate and tell us what the rates are there. We can put in your private hourly rates that you might want to choose, and I've deliberately put in a lower rate because we've got to account for being down in London, being up north. There might be, so I didn't want to put a higher rate. I wanted to just say, look, let's just look at the basic levels. We can add in simple basic additional fees. I've done this calculation on just working term time only, because I am a real believer in work-life balance. You don't need, I'm giving nobody a fast track ticket to burnout. Okay. I want people to actually enjoy the journey and making that transition. So we've got your early years rate, your wraparound rate, the membership fee that you pay for Tiny. This next section I'm going to leave out. This is around assistance, but I will come back to it if somebody wants to develop their practice into having staff and moving on within that. So what I've done is added 2 under 2s and 1 2-year-old for working parents, and then 3 wraparound children. So you can have 3 under 5s and 3 wraparound children aged 5 to 8. So the maximum a childminder can have is 6 children on roll. As I've said, I've done it for 30 hours, so it's working part-time, term time only. And then my lovely calculations work out, and we'll show you the income here. And you can see that as a standard is at 40K if you're at full occupancy for a childminder. Now, if you wanted to work with your partner or work with mum or dad or a friend at work and bring somebody else in, and obviously you've got the space within the setting, that it's not a tiny 1-bedroom apartment, your numbers double for every assistant that you take on. So for every assistant you can have another 6 children, space permitting. And this changed in November. You used to have we're able to have 2 assistants, you can now have 3. So that could be a combination of 2 other childminders and an assistant, or 3 assistants and you as the lead. So let's say you took on an assistant and you doubled your numbers here to 4 and another one there to 2, and let's say we took that to
Kim, I've had a question. Do assistants need to be qualified?
No, we train them.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could take on an assistant and be able to expand your offering pretty much straight away.
100%. Yeah. So I need to put in the assistance rate, but this would normally calculate for me to show if I just put in the normal, what's the minimum wage? It's about £12.61, something like that, isn't it? There you go. So it's going to calculate for me the assistant's salary, working part-time still on those 30 hours. And then it will calculate down here your total income at 80. And then after you've paid the assistant, there's 58. And obviously your own salary comes out of that. That's with 1 assistant, and that can keep on going on. Now, we, as I say, our first goal is to get people to 30,000 as a newly trained, somebody that's kind of got no background in early years and that are just coming there. They're learning EYFS, they're learning how to be a business. There's a lot to learn in that first year. So there's lots there that we can do. There's lots of room for expansion. We also show the career path that childminders can take. Then it's not just on this side of the business. I support and manage 20 community coaches who are people that run their own groups. So they've got groups of childminders in their areas and they're paid for that. At some point in their career, they might want to become a consultant and they'll come under Mark, and Mark will lead all of the consultants. They then get to go out and do registration visits. They'll need quite a bit more experience if they want to do quality assurance visits. So there's a really fantastic career path for childminders. And I think, if nothing else, I want to really myth bust tonight that childminders are the poor relations of early years, because this is so not the case at all. But I hope that that's really helpful. As I say, I could do lots more calculations and kind of show you. We have, at last count, I need to kind of find all of the figures, but we've got a number of childminders that are in the 50k club. And I think we've got about 12% of our childminders are in the 100k club. So they're
fantastic.
10.
Big numbers there, Kim.
We're working with their parents, their family, making it into a family business.
Brilliant.
And, everybody gets to work together. It's supportive. And but it has to be based on the quality. So obviously we're talking about pay here, and I really don't want anybody to get the impression that it's sell and let's go. That's really not what we're supporting at all. It's about having a quality setting in your local community that supports the needs of your community and brings all of your experience to the community and helps you to benefit from it. And it's really important that you do think about working part-time, because childcare is hard work. It's a lot of work. And as much as we provide you with a lot of support to run your business, to understand how to do the business, to become an educator and all of those sorts of things, it's still really important that you leave room for growth. I have seen practitioners that come in and they might have a waiting list before they've started. And it's go, but actually that can be at the cost of quality, because you're learning on the go, and that's not really something that we want to recommend, because if you're going at full pelt from the beginning, you're not going to last the distance. So it's really important that you're able to think about a lot of these things before you start, and you think about your income goals, and you think about, the transition. That's another key area that we have people obviously that might be working in early years now, or might be employed somewhere, and they're worried, how am I going to transition from being employed to basically being self-employed? And again, this is a huge part of the offer that we support practitioners with, is helping to make that transition and making sure that they are able to advertise, market their settings, families enroll people, and then set an opening date so that there's no break in salary, so that they're able to give notice, but actually they've got a September start for their new children that they've already met, and parents have paid in advance, so there's no break in their salary. That's a real common question, but it's something that we have to navigate to make it workable. So that's one of those key areas. I'll stop sharing now, but happy to take any questions if there's any.
No, loads to unpick there, Kim. I think absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And I think for everybody that's kind of in that position where they're thinking of, I currently would like to open my own. I'm going to use day nursery because I've heard so many people say to me in the past and recently, I want to open my own day nursery, but I haven't got the funds to do it. I guess you just said there that childminding could be a route for them. Would you say that that's an option? That's a pathway that they can take?
It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. When we talk about childcare on non-domestic premises, this is Mark's absolutely glory place. So I'm going to let Mark have that bit as well.
Yeah, so I think just one other point to clarify actually is the qualifications question is really interesting, because the childminders follow the EYFS, but we have our own EYFS in childminding. So there is the EYFS for day nursery Greek provision, And then there is the EYFS for childminders, and there are some slightly different requirements and qualifications being one of them. So managers and owners will be very aware of the qualification percentages that you need to have in every room at all times, whether it's lunchtime, whether it's break. It's a real headache. Whereas in childminding, that doesn't exist. So there is no requirement for qualifications. It's about having the knowledge and the experience to be able to do the role and the skills. So that's probably why that question came up. But yeah, I always wanted to set up a nursery, and actually I did think about childminding some time ago. But as I said, I was in house shares. Childminding is not going to work in a house share. And back in January of this year, we had a really exciting new part of childminding set up, which is the childminders without domestic premises. So I've got to get the terminology right. Childminders without domestic premises. And that means that it is a childminder who is operating not from their home, but from a non-domestic space. So that might be a scout hut. That might be a women's institute hall. That might be fully in a forest or on a beach. It could be that you have got a community centre that actually sits empty, or you're part of a local church and we registered somebody in their local church, which is used in the evenings and the weekends, but is empty during the day. And they've been able to negotiate with their pastor to have this childcare space, which they have turned into, for all intents and purposes, what we call our tiny nursery. And it operates like a mini nursery. So that is the same piece of advice that Kim was offering. So to be under childminder legislation, you can either be at home or on this non-domestic space, and that is for a maximum of 4 adults. So if it goes over 4 adults into 5, then that would need to be registered differently. So if you were in a non-domestic space, you would need to register as a nursery. If you were in a domestic home, we have to register you under a slightly different registration, which is called childcare on domestic premises. And that operates like a nursery in a home with the qualifications rule and all of that. But this is just fascinating to me, and I'm so excited about it. It's really new. We're currently doing a couple of pilot projects in some secondary schools to help with retention of teachers in their secondary school, and we're operating in empty parts of the grounds of the school, or in porta cabins that have been bought to offer this, and that is running just like a mini nursery. But obviously you would need to be in ratio yourself. As a childminder, you can only leave assistants in charge of the children without you for a maximum of 2 hours a day. So that allows you to go to an appointment or go for a lunch break, or to go and pick up the shopping, but the maximum of 2 hours. So it's a really nice route in if you wanted to set up a nursery, because actually I have done a lot of setting up nurseries, and the big problem is the upfront cost and expense, because you need to employ all the right percentage of qualified staff, and you need them ready to start before the children are there, and it just means that you have to take a big old loss at the beginning. Whereas with this, you could start yourself and an assistant. Once you've got some numbers, get on another assistant, get bigger, and another assistant, up to your maximum of 4. And you're actually running at that point a really lovely nursery. And if you want to then go up to 5, you can then register as a nursery provision, but you've already got all of the groundwork that's there. So yeah, that's super exciting. There's one other piece of advice that I would give to anyone that might think about coming into childminding, but also to current nursery owners or managers that are on here. And it's the same advice that we give to new childminders. And that is that Kim has just shown how you can maximize your earnings, but that is making sure that you're thinking with your business head on. To take over a lot of nurseries that were struggling financially, the first thing we saw was a lot of them had this Tetris puzzle that would not fit together, was how I would always describe it. You've got a child that's doing 9 till 2, and your usual sessions start at 9 o'clock or 1 o'clock. So that 2 o'clock finish, you have got to find a child to exactly match that schedule. And if you do, and you lose one half of that, you've got to try and find another. Or you've got one doing 10 till 2 on a Tuesday and Thursday, 8 till 4 and actually it doesn't fit together. So be really, really think with your business head on about whether you're in a nursery, childminding setting, whatever, thinking about making sure that you've got really regular sessions, that you know that if you sold half of it, you can sell the other half, and that the Tetris puzzle fits together. Otherwise, your earnings are never going to get there, because actually you're going to have these big gaps because you've given away 2 extra hours to this family. Actually, you can never sell 3 other days, half days of sessions. So
we see it in day nurseries all the time, and it's my biggest thing that I kind of comment on a lot of it is that what are your sessions, and sometimes it's nice and easy. It's, we operate 9 till 1 and then we operate a 1 till 6 p.m. session or until close, and it's nice and easy. And other cases we have we kind of do hourly, and then we also do sessions, and then we do this.
Yeah.
We kind of look at the model. And for anybody that's listening that owns a nursery at the moment, always think about your quietest days. They always tend to be a Monday and a Friday. And if you're bolting on sessions and you end up filling up early on a Friday morning, and then someone comes and wants a full day, you've got no flexibility either to be able to offer that full day. So always think about your sessions and planning. And Mark, it's a very valid point for anybody setting up, but also a point for anybody that's already set up, but anybody that's already operating a childminding business or day nursery and so on, because those structures, it forms the whole business model. And from a marketing point of view, which is obviously my background, when we get approached by people in the sector who want support with marketing, and they really, I can see the passion, I can see the benefits of them, doing some really solid marketing for themselves and helping their brand awareness and growing it. But then when we have the situation where, we've only really got gaps on Fridays and Mondays, it makes life very hard to be able just to market those 2 days and get the children in on those 2 days. So always think about your model, and I think that's, I know we've sidetracked a little bit away from pay, but it is a real key point, because it influences how much revenue you're going to be generating.
And actually, if nursery owners, managers are being able to fill their occupancy, then actually there's a higher revenue to be able to pay your staff. If you're saying, I really wish I could, really, that would be one of the first things I looked at. We have some really open conversations with parents. Of course, you want to be flexible, and childminding specifically works really well. We're trying to be flexible with families. But when we moved to our 3 days had to be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we didn't offer many 2-day sessions, but the ones that we did had to either be a Monday or Tuesday and a Thursday and Friday to make it work for parents, but also make it work for us. And when you were having those conversations with parents, and they were actually, coming back from maternity leave, and they were talking to work early and going, I've got a nursery space, but my day off was going to be a Friday. Can it be a Monday? And actually, we found that parents, once you were honest with them about why we needed that, they were really understanding about, okay, let me work with you. So look at that first to maximize your revenue and pay your team a decent salary then, because you've got some new income coming in.
100%. You've got to do it. And it makes me smile, because there's someone that agrees with me. I've been preaching it for a long time, and it's one of those things where there's so much extra revenue you can unlock within your current structure that actually, just by doing a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of I guess I wouldn't say forcing, but it kind of is, pushing into the right sequence in terms of the right sessions, the right days. It makes the flow much nicer across the board. And there's also, if there are anybody that's listening, whether you're a practitioner, whether you're an owner, or potentially even childminder, I don't know how it fits within this, and maybe Mark and Kim, you can help. But there's a couple of platforms out there that offer ad hoc childcare, where they can actually add on additional sessions and book in. Does that work in childminding, that type of thing, or is that still an option?
Yeah, we have loads of childminders that offer ad hoc sessions that might do really early care. The one thing that's really unique to childminding, and not something I'd come across before, is overnight care. And of course, if you've got a parent that is working a night shift as a nurse or as a midwife, childminders can offer overnight care. They do need to have a separate bedroom away from any other children in their family, and each child needs to have their own bedroom and a set of requirements that needs to be met. And you need to be registered specifically for that. But that's a really interesting part. And weekend care, childminders that are supporting families that are working weekend shifts. It really is up to you as a childminder what you take and how you take it. You could charge a premium rate for that early hours, the later in the day hours.
You almost adjust your model based upon your demographic, your geo. It's like if you're by a hospital and you know that you're going to be attracting a lot of parents that are shift workers, well, adapt your model to being focused on shift workers. And if that works for you, then brilliant, because then you can actually offer something slightly different that potentially day nurseries can't offer as well.
That's right, because we've got childminders have obviously different overheads than a nursery, don't they? And it works kind of both sides. Sorry, my voice is really bad. It works both sides in that lots more parents work from home now, might need to only go into the office 2 days a week. But also from the childminder's side, depending on their own personal circumstances, they might only want to work a couple of days a week. They might only want to work with after school age ranges. And so it's having that flexibility to say, actually, I can support my own family, I can bring in income, but I can do the hours that actually work for me and that supports my community and that kind of still has that flow. So it's really good to have options, I guess. And when you're working through, for example, the calculator, you can put that in and you can play through the figures and say, well, what happens if I am only working part-time? I had a lady who actually contacted me for some support. She said, I've only got a baby and I really need lots more children. What can I do? And I asked her, are you getting lots of inquiries? She said, oh, I get tons of inquiries. So when I had a look at those inquiries, they were all for after school care. So I kind of went through the figures with her and just said, look, on your doorstep, you've got this primary school. All the parents are asking you for support and you can afford to work 7 till 9 in the morning. Children come, have breakfast, do some activities, go to school, and then from 3 till 6 in the evening. So from 9 till 3, you're free. And she was actually going to earn more. She wanted to do her level 3. That freed her up to go and do it. So, it's people don't always think about the model and how does it work and what do my community need. So sometimes we're just able to take them through that and think about it, and that's the really exciting bit, really.
Definitely. And it's really, I think, being in touch with your community and also giving your community an offer, whatever it is, whatever, as I said earlier, whatever business you're running, whether it's a babysitting business, whether it's a day nursery, whether you're a childminder, always think about what value you can give to your community. And if that value is what sessions you offer, if that value is what advice you're giving your community, I know a lot of people set up Facebook groups and Facebook groups aimed at parents with children under 5, and they're literally posting resources to help parents out. And it's fantastic because they're giving value in that way, but also you can also give value in what your offering is in the first place, which is brilliant. Obviously, you've got the flexibility to do that in childminding, but also I know a lot of day nurseries, you've also got the same flexibility. Look at options as well. There's plenty out there and plenty of extra things you could do, and holiday clubs and babysitting services and all the rest of it. I could rattle off probably a list of 10 things right now, but to kind of wrap up, I guess the main part of this session, I guess there's opportunities if you're thinking about setting up a day nursery, potentially taking that route with childminding. It seems like a very, very nice transition from how you described it, Kim and Mark. So thank you. Hopefully everyone appreciates that's listening today. But before we finish for the session today, if you don't mind, Kim and Mark, can we do the Q&A? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And thank you, Kim, for putting up with us through this session. I appreciate it, especially if you're feeling 100%.
That's fine. Thank you.
So we've had quite a lot of comments. We've had 73 now. So what I'll do is I'll go through kind of and unpick some of these as we go. And apologies if I don't read yours out. There is quite a lot coming in. I've had another 5. So what we'll do is we'll go through some of the ones that look interesting, and then if we've got time, I'll try and get through as many as possible. We'll aim for 5. That's all right, and we'll see how we go. We've had one through, which is from somebody that's obviously looked at your spreadsheet, Kim. It's 12% seems a lot from Tiny. Why not sign up with Ofsted, which is cheaper? I guess it's probably a fair comment. What's your response to that?
Absolutely. Everybody has the choice to go. I always liken it to, you need surgery, you can go NHS or you can go private. You're still going to have, get to the end result. And yes, 12% is what childminders do pay for their membership. It includes their insurance, it includes all of the training, it includes their registration. There are probably 20 to 30 benefits that they will receive as part of that membership as well. But absolutely, people choose to come this route, and we make it very aware that they can go the Ofsted route. They will have to do things obviously very independently, navigating through. A lot of people come to us because they want the support. They They want the support and navigating through setting up a business and tax and, the tax office, HMRC, as well as, the education, as well as having conversations with parents around contracts and fees and setting up all of their policies. There's a huge amount to do, and we provide a bit of a done for you service, I guess, that can get into positions very quickly, as well as a lot around quality, which I'm sure Mark will come in on in a moment as well. So yes, there is that option to go to Ofsted, and it just depends on your own experience, your own motivation, and your own empowerment, really, as to where you are and whether you think, yeah, I can do this independently. I was an independent childminder, and I still work with independent childminders. So I'm like Mark, I kind of know both sides of the coin. I am just for home-based childcare, and I love childminding. So I don't really mind which version it comes in. I just, I like the tiny version because there's so much support that is offered. But I equally appreciate it's not for everybody. And that's absolutely fine. Mark, I think you probably
I just always feel sad that when I see that the childcare numbers are dwindling, both in childminding and in Greek provision and nursery settings. So I am just for any part of childcare growing, whatever you choose to do. And for me, I remember a time when we had much more local authority support, and we had access to people coming in and offering that guidance and send support and queries and questions. And sadly, depending on local authorities, there are some that do that well, but a lot of local authorities are struggling to offer that. So, absolutely, if you feel that the Ofsted route is for you, then we are still going to celebrate that. What we try and offer, and as Kim said, it's not for everyone, but our approach is trying to do it slightly differently and be a different kind of regulator. So I'm my quality flag, that's very much in my role remit. But we do not inspect, we quality assure. It's not an audit. We come out every year to see you, and the aim of that is always to feel like that professional challenge of like support and challenge what's going really well, what could be going better, or what could now you develop even further. We don't use inadequate or requires improvement gradings. We scrapped that 3 years ago, and we use what's called support required, good and outstanding. And if you get a support required, you get a dedicated coach to help you get there. We put on send support, and so for us it's about being a bit more of a community, and if that's what you're looking for, then that's also what the 12% covers. But if you're not, that's totally fine, and we work with some wonderful people and some of our wonderful consultants that aren't necessarily registered with Tiny. So yeah, just come in and be the best you can be, whatever route you take.
Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you for that, and hopefully that answers the question. It's kind of it's as you say, Kim, at the start. You're either going private or you're going to the NHS, and that's kind of a very similar comparison.
Yeah. It's still the journey, isn't it? But it depends on everybody's needs, isn't it? And what they want to be a part of. We're very mission and vision focused. We are really here about the vision for early years, for childminders to be, to professionalize it and to really make an impact. We talk about unlocking the potential of every child, so it's very mission focused, and
with a strong community, right?
Yeah, and Mark and I are really passionate about that. It really aligns with our own values, things that we believe in. So it's really easy for us to be able to support childminders and equip them and empower them to do that journey, and to say, right, in your community you can be and we will equip you and support you to get up and running. So it's slightly wider than just
that.
We did a little bit of research about a year ago on earnings, and actually what we found, Ofsted childminders versus Tiny childminders and other agencies, but we looked at ourselves in this study, was that the earnings of our childminders weren't less than their Ofsted equivalents, because there are people like Kim doing the whole, this is what you can charge, this is how you do it, this is how you do the Tetris puzzle. Yeah. So what we found is that the earnings were actually on the average higher in each local area than what you'd expect them to be. So it wasn't necessarily an actual earnings reduction, which I think is a really important point to mention.
You've got that kind of coach support and the consultancy support that drives forward the best they can get out of their business, which is fundamentally what everybody needs. But you're giving that as part of your offering. So it's kind of that 12% is covers all of that support. Is that right?
I would just add to that, though, that it's all driven by trying to provide affordable childcare for parents. So we're not here to say, like, childminders, you go and earn and you. It's about being driven, affordable childcare for families and doing the numbers so that families are actually benefiting from the childcare that they're getting, and not trying to top up in this way, that way, or whatever. It's making sure that it works for both sides. So. And that really fits with our mission and vision, doesn't it, Mark? And all of our values. So that's quite an important part for us.
No, it's good. It's very good. And I think there's a couple of questions that have come in, and I appreciate we're really tight on time now. So apologies if we run slightly over. But I've had one through which is quite interesting and quite fitting. I think this is probably relevant to someone that's potentially not a tiny childminder. I'm thinking. Is there anything that they can do, or anything you advise for someone that potentially isn't a tiny childminder? Is there any support that they can access, or anywhere they can go?
We do a couple of sessions that are open to the public, like this one as well. So keep an eye out for any of the sessions that we run, because we always love from hearing in those sessions from people across the sector. My biggest advice is try and find your local children's centre, see what stay and play sessions are in there. Reach out to a local nursery. When I was a nursery manager, I wish some I wasn't fully aware of the childminding sector, so be a bit of an irritant. Ring up some of your local nurseries and say, hey, like, I'm a childminder and would love to have some people around me. Find some local childminders, do some calls around, put yourself out there. It might not be the most comfortable, but reach out to your local authority. Each local authority is different. You might be in one that does offer some support, but I always think children's centres stay and play sessions are such a great place to start, build those networks, and also great for advertising too.
Yeah,
we're getting all the shout outs from that, Mark. I love these sessions. Look at that. The final one before we finish, and I appreciate. I think, Gemma, if this is your comment, which I think it is, looking at it. Yeah, we've had Gemma. I know you've asked a few comments on the thread, and I appreciate we've focused heavily on childminding, and you're obviously approaching it as a nursery owner point of view. And I'll pop your latest comment on there. Giving tips for your, I guess, obviously we're giving tips for people to leave your team. I wouldn't say we are. I'd say it's more of a pathway and route that they potentially want to take. But what can you do to get more people in your team? I think, obviously, I talk heavily about empowerment and trying to encourage a culture and trying to build a culture. But Mark, is there anything that you would suggest to Gemma?
Yeah, I would say we're very much not talking about people leaving teams. My thing was talking about people being in the right team for them. So, but to get people in the team, work out what it is you're offering them, because I've worked in some really challenging environments where we cannot increase the wages, and we simply will not keep the doors open. And that is the reality. So we really focused in on becoming that really supportive coaching workplace where I was out on the floor being that person to help develop people, working with a team that I got in that might not have had the experience. I do the same educational approach with the adults that I work with as I do with the children, right? That scaffolding. Where do they start? How can I help them to grow? Not just click your fingers, be better, but how can I slowly scaffold you to help you understand and work with you and slowly build, not too much, the Goldilocks approach, not too hot, not too cold, but just right, whereas you've got to build and work with your team. So it's very much about the culture, giving people opportunities to be part of what it makes that team, what's their passions, what can they bring in. If there's something they're really passionate about, then let them take a bit of a leadership role in that. It's not just about pay, and actually, the Maslow's hierarchy of need. Yes, we need our basic needs met, but how are you seeing them? What are you giving them to make them feel comfortable? It's not about putting some perfumes in a bathroom. It's actually about how it feels when they come in each day. One of the best things I ever had and the best team I ever had was we just did random acts of kindness, not because it was a day to do it today and it was so-and-so that got pulled out of the hat. But I remember having a really tough week, and I'd walked in and there was a carton of pineapple juice on my desk with a sticky note saying, I know this is your favourite and I've seen you having a really long week this week. And it was those little moments where the team they knew each other and they were just doing those little things that made way bigger impact than me having a hamper. That was someone that had just seen me slowly beavering away and had noticed what my favourite thing was, or had taken the time to ask. So let them be them and just find out what they need.
No, thank you, Mark. I think, Gemma, thank you. I think it's a really tough question as well, because obviously, we have talked a lot about childminding, we have talked a lot about practitioners and what you can do, and as nursery owners, I know how hard it is as a nursery owner to really try and get your team engaged and get your team growing and your team in that really stable, strong place. And Mark, straight away there, some really fantastic tips on what you can do to kind of give your team a bit more passion, a bit more, I guess, empowerment. This is my favorite word at the moment. Empowerment, which will lead to obviously people staying in your team and people potentially talking about your setting and encouraging others to come and work for you. And if someone wants to progress to becoming a childminder or own their own day nursery, help them. Help them on their journey, because all they're going to do is come back to you and say, or come back to their friends, or come back to you and say thank you. I think it's a huge thing, and that can have a huge impact.
I won't go off on a big tangent on leadership stuff, because that will take me another hour. But I think one thing that I've experienced, and I can't speak for anybody else, but things I experienced of when I was experiencing poor leadership was when it was very the top down. So actually, I never was involved in any of the decision making. My staff meetings where you sit and listen, and here's a checklist of stuff you need to do better. And actually, what I love and what motivates me, and we know motivates everybody in all the evidence-based practice, is do an all hands where you get everyone in the room with the problem and just see what your team might come up with. Get invested in finding some of the solutions.
Yeah,
I feel like they're part of that nursery space, not just an employee. And I think those are the moments that really make people tick and make them feel that they belong there. They're not just
a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, just feel valued. Yeah, to feel valued as well. So
no, definitely. Yeah. Well, obviously, I think that's all we've got time for today. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going live again on our next session in 2 weeks' time. We'll be posting the event back in the group again, so you'll be able to see the date and time and sign up to the event as well in advance. Always key to sign up, because we send you those little email reminders that may encourage you to come and join us actually live in the session rather than watching it on repeat. And you can ask questions as well. And we try our best to get through them. And I'm really sorry. We only actually got through 3 of the 98 comments that are in there. We will do our best to summarize them in our follow-up email. So if you have signed up to the sessions, you will get that follow-up email with hopefully some answers to those key questions as well. And I believe people, if they want to find out more about childminding, they can just go to the Tiny website and they can book a call. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to run a live webinar session as well if people want to find out more. But just, we're happy to do that, but they can just go to the site and sign up. Some people get in contact.
Brilliant. And we've got all of the thank you comments coming through now, which is always fantastic. Thank you all. I love these sessions. Kim, you're a hero. There you go, Kim. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.